Hello, my name's Anthony Ledden. I'm the plant breeder from Valley Seeds, and today I'm going to take you through a few agronomy pasture ideas out in the field. So I'm just going to show you the different growth rates of some of the different pasture species while we're looking at here today, so you can get an idea of how quickly they get established and start growing when you first sow them. So what I'm showing you today has been sown in the end of March, the beginning of April of 2014, and we're into the beginning of June now, so I'll show you how quickly they get established. So I'll just turn the camera around. Here now we have some plots of Italian ryegrass. So Italian ryegrass is a grass that usually lasts about 1 year under Australian normal conditions. If you have a mild summer, you can get it to last maybe 2 years, as long as it's not too hot and there's moisture through the summer. So you can see after sowing in the beginning of April, at the beginning of June, that's how much growth we have on there, that's ready to graze now with stock. So you can see stock in here grazing. Here now we're looking at plots of hybrid ryegrass. So what hybrid ryegrass is a cross between Italian ryegrass and perennial ryegrass. So you can see it's a bit of a combination of the both. You have a little bit of winter growth that you seem to achieve with the Italian ryegrass, and you also get a little bit better persistence. So usually with the hybrid ryegrasses, you'd expect them to last around between 2 to 3 years in the Australian environment. Perennial ryegrasses here, so you can see the plots, they don't have as much growth as what you were seeing on the Italian ryegrasses, but it makes up for that in its ability to persist longer than what Italian ryegrass can. So you usually expect the perennial ryegrasses to last 3 years or more under good conditions. Phalaris aquatica, and you can see as in comparison to the other species, it hasn't established as quickly, and you've got a few more weeds coming up. So it is perennial, so it lasts a long time. It can last up to 20 years or more in some pastures. So it's important to get it to establish well, and to get it to survive, you need to have really good weed control to help with that. So Phalaris slower to emerge than the other species, but has longer persistence. Coxford here. So Coxford, out of all the perennial grasses, is the slowest to get established. It has the smallest seed, and its vigour is very slow. So it's quite really important at early sowing of Coxford that you make sure you have really good weed control, because the Coxford can be outcompeted in the wintertime because they're quite low in winter growth until you get through that first season. But once it's established, it's a very hardy grass, so it can survive and persist for a long time. So Coxford is good to have, but management at the initial phase of sowing is really summer active tall fescue, or continental tall fescue, some people call them. And you can see it's quite slow to get established as well. This was sown in the beginning of April, and we're into the beginning of June now. So usually you won't see much from a summer active fescue over the winter period, because they're quite they have very low winter activity. So it's also important to get them in as early as you can when the moisture's there, and to have really good weed control, because they'll be quite low in their growth in the winter period until they get established and get growing, going into spring and summer. A winter active tall fescue, or Mediterranean tall fescue, some people call them. So you can see, in comparison to the summer active or the continental types, they're more vigorous to get established, and so a lot of their production is over the winter period, but still they're slower than what perennial ryegrass is, or Phalaris. So you need to have good weed control and management on those while you're trying to get them established. And they have the ability to shut down and go summer dormant when there's less rain. So that's a real advantage of those in dry conditions where your rainfall is around 500 millimetres. Show you a plot here of chicory that we have in our trials. Now, chicory is a herb, and it has a deep tap root that grows down into the ground, very similar to lucerne in many respects. So it behaves quite similarly to lucerne as well. It doesn't like wet or waterlogged soils, and one thing that differentiates it a bit from what lucerne does is that it can tolerate more acidic soils than what lucerne can. So chicory lasts between 2 to 5 years. You get different types. As we walk across here, you can see those ones there are quite winter active, and then we have a type here that's less winter active, so it has lower winter activity and is more summer active later in the summertime. So usually what you tend to find is that the ones that have less winter activity persist for longer than what the more winter active ones do. And it's a similar case in lucerne as well, where the higher the winter activity, the more winter feed they produce, but the less persistent they are, the less long they survive. So chicory is a species where it's very digestible to stock, so they really love eating it. They have to get used to it in the beginning, so slowly put them onto it, and then once they do, they'll get a taste for it and start to eat it. One thing is with chicory is that although it looks like a lot of feed here, the dry matter content is very low. It has a high water content in the plant, so you tend to find that you need to have a lot of it to fill up stock. So even though this, at the height that it looks like here, is probably, if you compared it to a brassica crop, maybe 4.5 to 5 tonnes of dry matter per hectare, when you actually, if you took a cut and dried it down, you'd probably find that it'd be only around 2 tonne of dry matter per hectare, or 2.5 tonnes. So not as high yielding as brassicas, but they're perennial, so they last a long time. And what you tend to find is usually farmers sow them in spring and get them established as individual monoculture of plants, or with clovers in them, and then they look to oversow their grasses into them in the autumn period then. And one reason why they become very popular as a crop is that all the forage brassicas in the summertime were attacked by a lot of diamondback moths. So that's not the case with chicory. They're resistant to diamondback moth, but they're still quite susceptible at a seeding stage to insects such as red-legged earth mite and lucerne fleas. So it's important that if you buy seed, you either get it gaucho treated, or if you don't get it gaucho treated, you spray for those insects before and monitor after sowing that there's none of them there.